Women, hello and God bless you. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have Reverend Daryl Faulkner with us, and he's been with us before, but today he's going to give us some background and some updates on the program of Kansas City 360. We heard his testimony before of how he has collaborated with other entities within his community. And they looked at the program in Omaha, and it's really working for them. They had significant success. So they're looking to implement it as well in Kansas City. So with no further ado, I'm going to welcome Reverend Darren Faulkner.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Alexander. Really appreciate being with you all again. Thank you for this opportunity. We've got some exciting things that I'd like to share and update you all with. Last time that we met, I introduced this approach to violence prevention known as KC 360. It is modeled after the highly successful, recognized initiative by the Department of Justice out of Omaha, Nebraska. The founder there is none other than Mr. Willie Barney. And just as a quick review, the 360 initiative is just what it says. It's not a program, but it is a collaborative work that brings together organizations that actually do have programs. And in a city as small as Kansas City, 500,000 people, oftentimes those smaller organizations and agencies are going after the same funding just to stay afloat. And when that happens, it creates tension, it creates issues that sometimes cause these entities to work in silos. Well, the 360 initiative is an effort to bring those organizations together in collaborations. And so since the last time that we all met and I had the opportunity to share, KC Common Good, an organization that I also work for, has been working to develop this funding stream for these community violence intervention organizations to do their work at a greater capacity. We understand that many of the organizations working in Kansas City do great work, but they lack the funding to capacity build to meet the need and the demand that we're seeing. Last year in Kansas City, we had 169 homicides. That's the second most homicides in a single year on record. We currently sit at number 6 in the country, I believe, as the most violent city per capita right now. And to this end, our city has never really significantly supported violence prevention with dollars. And if you're serious, this is just me talking, if you're serious about reducing violent crime, you have to put your money where your mouth is. And just to give you one quick example, we all know that recidivism rates are high across the country, 50, 60, 70% recidivism rates. And those individuals coming out of incarceration generally return within the first 30 days, as many as 60% of them do. And so recognizing that, we know that in Kansas City, every year, 5,000 to 6,000 people return to the community from incarceration, 5,000 to 6,000 people. And we have 2 organizations that work with reentry that have capacity to serve, I say, 250 people. So basically, we're serving 500 of the 5,000 to 6,000 that return to the community. And if you follow the data and you recognize that a good percentage of those are going to reoffend and go back to prison, then it makes sense to put some money towards this reentry effort to help prevent someone from reoffending and going back to incarceration. And in some cases, that reoffending might be a violent criminal act like a non-fatal shooting or even a fatal shooting. So we have been pushing our local city council legislation to adopt a $30 million investment towards violence prevention. And I am happy to say that last Thursday, our city council met and they voted to approve and allocate $30 million over the next 5 years towards violence prevention. And for us, that is a huge win to get the city to invest in this way. I've been living in Kansas City for 23 years, and I've never, in working in this space of violence prevention intervention, seen such an investment to this magnitude. And so we are very happy with what's happened with our city and the investment that they are poised and ready to make towards violence prevention intervention. While they're doing that, we're also working on a community impact fund. And the purpose is to leverage private dollars with these public dollars. So the public dollars coming from the city is 30 million over the next 5 years, 6 million a year. We want to maximize that by leveraging those dollars with philanthropic dollars. And then hopefully we'll have, instead of 30 million over 5, we'll have 60 million over 5. And what that does is it funds those organizations that are already doing the work, have been doing the work, to, in some cases, double the capacity of the work that they're doing. And so that's exciting. I wanted to share that right off the jump. That's a major development since we last met. And it's taken about that much time for it to come to pass. So we're happy with that development. One of the other things that I wanted to share with you all today, and I'm not sure if I'm able to share my screen. I don't know who's controlling this Zoom. Let's see.
EJ, is he able to show? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, I don't know. Can you all see that?
You bet.
Yes.
So these are key components that the Omaha initiative has established, and we have begun to work on those same key components here in Kansas City. And what you'll notice is they're committed to these core group interactions and building those collaborations. One of the things we experience in Kansas City is, we have these organizations that work in the same space of community violence intervention, but they don't work well together. And so what we have done and what we are doing is building and fostering those relationships through weekly collaborative meetings that you see here. We also have begun to have these, what we call community stakeholder meetings. And these are people from the community that make up the residents, the youth, the neighborhood leaders, the faith leaders from the community, and begin to work collaboratively alongside them to address the issues of violence. And then maintaining a consistent communication. We meet weekly, we don't do monthly meetings. These stakeholder meetings are monthly meetings, but the 360 meetings are weekly. And that's mainly to maintain that consistent communication. And also in meeting weekly, we have a great opportunity to coordinate and collaborate around the efforts being done by various partners at the table around violence prevention, intervention, and enforcement. I won't go through each one of these, but I really wanted to also share this slide with you here. So this is a one-page overview of what we have done in terms of establishing the framework. When I was last on to share with you all, we were just starting this work in Kansas City. Omaha has been doing this work for 15 years. And just to kind of put things in perspective, as I said, Kansas City had 169 homicides last year. Omaha had 30. Kansas City in the first 2 months of the year, January and February, had 23. So we were 7 away in the first 2 months of the year to the total number of homicides that Omaha had for the whole year. And so this is a snapshot of what we have been doing since we last met with you all, is using this framework of the 360 model out of Omaha to establish this collaborative coalition here in Kansas City. We now have our vision, which is a safe and just city for all youth and families thriving with diversity and economic prosperity. We have established our values, and this is through collaborative work with multiple partners in different sectors from our city. Faith, hope, optimism, trust, equity, and togetherness are the values that we hold as an initiative. And then we have established only 2 goals to begin this work. Safe, reduce gun violence by 10% to 60% to 50% with under 100 homicides, and that would be a reduction of 40%. The second goal is to help individuals maintain or obtain for the first time economic prosperity. Let's see, make it text larger for the view. Okay, let's see, I can do that.
Brothers and sisters can do that themselves. Oh, good. Okay, you did it. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. Okay, that fits on the screen pretty good. All right, so, and then work together, moving in the same direction. I have made the analogy that the work that we're doing is much like the work of the civil rights movement of the 1960s. There were different people from different walks of life, different economic status, different races, creeds, nationalities, who were a part of the civil rights movement. But when it came down to the work, they set all those titles and nationalities aside because they had a common goal, and that was civil rights for everyone. And right now we're in a pandemic as it pertains to violence in a lot of major cities across the country. I know right here in Kansas City we are. And so if we can pull people to the table, drop all of your other issues and differences, and let's focus on the things we have in common, and that is we want a safer city, then that's what we're doing. And that's what this draft sort of captures. The last time that I was with you, I shared with you that there are 5 pillars to the 360 strategy: prevention, intervention, enforcement and support, recovery and reentry, and support services. But what we are also focusing on is employment and training. So you can look at the list of people that have been with us so far in terms of the prevention work. These are different organizations that have been with us under the prevention arm of this work. Same is true here with intervention. Last summer, we had a lot of homicides, which is typical for us in Kansas City, that stemmed from Airbnb shootings. Airbnbs were being rented, and then large parties being held at those Airbnbs, and then shootings were occurring at those Airbnbs. Well, we got in touch with the regulated industries, who regulates how those rental properties can be utilized and who can rent those properties. And through our city council and their work with the regulated industries, we were able to change some of those regulations and rules for who could rent and how they could rent. And we have not had an Airbnb shooting since. So that's a part of the intervention that the work of 360 is doing and continues to do. These are some of the organizations that have been a part of us so far that work specifically in intervention. The same is true with enforcement. You can see the prosecutor's office, judges, jails, crime commission, so on and so forth. And then recovery and reentry, Second Chance, Restart, and Connections to Success are those top tier reentry organizations in Kansas City that do that work specifically. They have been with us. And then finally, these are those partners just kind of outlined as a working draft for the work that we're doing. I wanted to share those things with you to kind of update you on, you know, what's been happening since the last time that we met. I will say that this past Saturday, we held our first of a series of youth town hall meetings. And the purpose of this youth town hall was to help the young people build better relationships with law enforcement, and also to help law enforcement build better relationships with the young people. And it was well attended. I think we had over 55 young people. This is our first one. And we had a panel of young people who had the opportunity to share what the issues were they saw in their community pertaining specifically to law enforcement. And then we had the acting special agent in charge to ATF on an adult panel. We had our prosecuting attorney on our adult panel. We had one of the deputy chiefs from our police department on our adult panel, and we had a Jackson County court judge on our adult panel. And so those adults got to interact with the youth in terms of what they are seeing. And it was just a robust conversation. Some of the takeaways was that youth understood more of how the criminal justice system worked. I think law enforcement understood more of what youth are seeing and experiencing when they are afraid to call the police. And so we're going to do more of those as the year goes on. And we believe that these are things that are preventative and in some cases interventive, where we are addressing violence in our city. One last thing that I'll say, and then I will be quiet unless you have questions, is we are launching a summer work employment internship. This is our third year doing it. And what we have seen and what Omaha has seen is the more youth we employ during the summer, the more crime goes down in the summer. And so we know that putting young people to work helps them not only with their idle time, you know, the idle mind is the devil's workshop, as we say, but also letting them earn some money while they're doing this work. And the work is not menial. It is work that they desire to have a career in. So we try to match them with employers that are in the fields of their interest. We had a goal this year of 2,000 kids, and we have surpassed that. We almost are at 2,200 kids for this work summer initiative. That's another major milestone. And these are not just your average A student, B student. We have focused and targeted individuals from 6 zip codes in Kansas City where the highest poverty exists, where the highest crime rates exist, where the lowest economic status is. And these are individuals that we know if it was not for this opportunity, they would not get these kinds of opportunities. And so we're going to employ these young people this year, and all of the employers, all the organizations that will hire these young people do not have to pay them. we raised the funds to cover the stipend for these interns to work at these places and gain valuable experience and soft skills that will make them marketable to future employment. And ultimately, we want to see these kids be hired on full time. The age group for the summer employment internship is 14 to 18. So incoming freshmen, outgoing seniors. And for those outgoing seniors, some of them last year, I think as much as 26% of them were actually offered a full-time job. And so this is another way that we know we're affecting change, and we're affecting the violence in our city by putting these young people from these marginalized communities into employment where they can earn money and gain valuable experience for the workforce. I could go on, but I will stop. I feel like I've talked way too much already, but certainly that's where we are today. A lot farther along than we were when we last visited with you all. And we still got a long ways to go. This is a marathon. We didn't get to having 150 homicides every year overnight. And we're not going to get it under 100 homicides overnight. And so that's why we set a target goal of 3 to 5 years to reduce crime from 10% to as much as 50% over the next 5 years. And we believe we can do it, especially with this targeted funding that the city has began to invest into this work, and from the private philanthropic organizations around Kansas City and the nation that also see this as valuable work. We believe we're going to get there, and I hope that this work that you all are doing continues, and that we can come back again and report some additional exciting news. I will say this real quickly. We have a research partner with UMKC, the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and from their criminal justice department, Dr. Ken Novak has done some studies, and he's partnered with an organization called the RAND, R-A-N-D Institute. And they have come up with, for every homicide, it's about $8.6 million it costs the city in tax dollars, 8.6 million. And that includes, your first responders, the crime scene investigators, the homicide detectives, the overtime that they're going to put in those first 48 hours, your cold case officers, the hospital, all of those things, lost wages factor into that $8.6 million price tag for every single homicide. And so when you think of 169 homicides last year in Kansas City, it's over $1 billion. In fact, the gross domestic product was affected by 12 to 15% because of the cost it is taxing our city with every homicide. And so we know that the business community wants to do something about it, because when you want to draw businesses to your city, no one wants to come to a city that is the number 6 city in the country for being the most violent. And so we have invoked the business community to assist us in their efforts to support this work. And we know that if we can save the city, if we reduce homicides by 5% or by 10% over the next 3 years, we're saving the city millions of dollars in doing so. And everyone has an interest when it affects the bottom line. I'll stop there. If there's any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Wow, I thank you so much for the update, and it was so so detailed. So we have clarity. We were able to get clarity and understanding, and be able to support you in moving forward. So I thank you, and I'm going to speak for Reverend Oliver. He's in transition from one country to the other, but I'm going to say we will have you on again for future updates, and we appreciate you. I'm going to start with realizing that you have pulled in the targeted population, that age 14 to 18. with and training them and them having a skill and, building integrity and having an understanding of responsibility. That's what you call changing a mindset. So you're giving them the opportunity to know that they have value. And that's what I've said from the very beginning. That a lot of our young people, they're not aware of their value, and they are our future. So the more we sow into them, the more we lead and guide them, the more we support them, the better future we'll have. My husband works for Recycle Force, and the population, a majority of the population that they have right now are 18 to 24, and they're returning from incarceration. It's a social enterprise, but it gives them the skill set that they need to come in. My husband is a training director, to come in and get the skill and to be marketable, that they can have a living wage. So I know, exactly what you're talking about. So there was one thing I wrote down, and I'm not going to take up all the time because I want everybody else to be able to ask questions as well. But when you talked about the goal being unity, to be diversified, to have less fighting, come together. Let's talk about what we have in common and put aside our differences. I really appreciated that, to be able to agree to disagree, and sometimes it's just not the place and time for that topic. So let's put that on the sidebar and be able to move forward collectively. So in all things, as you're building and cultivating these relationships, I pray that the peace of God be up on your shoulders. I know it's hard work, but you're the man with the boots on the ground. So we appreciate you. And at this time, I'm going to digress and open up the floor for anyone that has questions or comments.
I know that when you guys started this, you got all these entities together across so many sectors of society, and you actually all sat down at the table and realized, some of us are doing things that are overlapping, but others of us are doing things that are specific to our organization or, our work. So let's use all of this to be able to move forward as one unit to take care of this problem. Does that kind of describe a little bit of how the unity got started you guys met weekly or bi-weekly? Is that correct?
Yeah. Miss Nadia, you're absolutely correct. We still are meeting weekly, but for the first 7.5 months, we pulled the shades and closed the door and met to plan what this can look like in Kansas City. And really in that 7.5 months, it was relationship building, helping these organizations that had been drawn to the table, called to the table, to know that they could trust one another. And looking at this from the perspective of, here's what we have in common versus all the differences we have. If we can focus on the things that we have in common, and that is we all want a safer city, we can set aside perhaps our differences just to focus on that. And so we spent the first 7.5 months planning behind closed doors with these agencies and organizations that otherwise didn't talk to each other, as a way to just build relationship and rapport with each other again. And I can tell you that that has been huge to get to the place where we are, because now these organizations talk to each other. Now these organizations trust each other. And because of that, we're able to put forth more of a united front and get more done, because we're not working against each other, but we're working together with each other.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have a comment. Hi, this is John O'Connor. Hi, Reverend Faulkner. Good to see you again today.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
I'd like to say I'm on the Kansas side of Kansas City. We're on Kansas, and yesterday I have to say it was wonderful. Reverend Faulkner met with me in Kansas City, and he and the lady there who's the chief of staff struck it up. with such wonderful rapport. They worked different programs with me in the years before, knew the same people. So Reverend Faulkner is going to help Kansas City, Kansas kind of get on the track a little bit with some of the work that he's doing on the Missouri side. So we're excited about that. Really grateful for what he's done for that. So appreciate that so much. I'd like to ask you, Reverend Faulkner, maybe you answer now or afterwards, but all these charts are wonderful. I wonder if we could get copies of them. I can put on a spreadsheet, Google spreadsheet, make that available. That'd be possible. I don't know if that would work or not, but we have to see what you think about that. But
Yes, sir, John, I would be happy to share these, but
Yeah.
I will say these are still in draft form. I don't know
Sure.
if you noticed the draft. Once we have complete, so part of the documents that I've shared with you
Mhm.
are the result of stakeholder meetings that we've already had.
Sure.
But in order to really establish the 10-point plan that will come from the work, we have some additional stakeholder groups that we have to engage. And once we have engaged those stakeholder groups, those feats that I shared with you will change. Now, the format will stay the same, but
Mhm.
some of the goals and technical approaches to addressing those issues, they will change. But this is just a draft, and I'd be happy to share it with you once we have a finalized version of it, because it's incomplete right now, and it wouldn't be prudent to share an incomplete document for the betterment of the group until we
Right.
have something more formal.
Very good. That's very fair. Thank you.
And yes, I did thank you, Mr. John, for allowing me to tag along with you to meet with the mayor of KCK yesterday. I don't know if you were aware, but today, as a result of that meeting, I'm attending their first law enforcement advisory board meeting
That's right.
over in KCK. So
Very good. Happy for that. Way to go. Thank you.
That's all a part of that collaboration.
That's wonderful, isn't it? Yeah.
Bishop Rosario, do you have something that you want to say?
The information is so valuable of unity and how we need to get the army out there and say about different organizations probably to knock on doors to help those young men and young women get some kind of training. We're working with a couple of unions to try to help our young people get some training in certain different areas so that they can get decent jobs, because a job gets them off the street and they're off on take all the time with money in their pocket of their family. Sometimes we throw a lot of money at things when we have an army that we can get out there to be able to work together as one human race that have the same need, whether we're Christians, Muslims, Jews, or whatever it is that we're living in a particular community or in a particular building. And we should be able to do like New York City Housing Authority, where we open up programs for our younger people. But we forget about our older people, like you said, 40, 80, 40, 20, 30 in that area that they don't have the training, the skill training so that they could get a decent job. I'm always at the, since I'm older, and I've been this for many years, and many years back in the early 60s, late 70s, we created programs like that with a lot of the house of worship that we used to knock on the doors, and for some reason or another, even though that is women's month, a lot of the ladies would knock on the doors and bring them into the house of worship and train them and help them. And gave them a lot. Sometimes their parents didn't give them because they're much out of pocket. And we were able to bring them into the programs that we were doing. We had tumbling. It was a very small, and we got with families that would come in, and the families, the mothers, the fathers would come in to see their children, and then they will stay as helpers in the program. But the idea is bringing the community together, in the Bronx and the South Bronx, where I was brought up and was still doing this work with a couple of our Muslim brothers, Hindu brothers coming together, realizing that we are the only one that could really save our communities. We could get all the money that we want from the different organizations and even the city council and all. But if we as a family do not come together, our children will not come together. And I've seen too many young men, African American, kind of, you know, die of overdose, die from gun violence and things like that. And this is something that epidemic, I call it a warfare that we're having against evil that is there. But we have the power, the authority to cancel the assignments of evil. And we also have the power and the authority that you were leading to be able to train a human person to do better. And I think that we have a unit, like I said, that they would be able to come on board. That they used to run a job corps, if you remember job back in the late 90s, and they're trying to rebirth where they take these young men and they send them out to the city and train them in different areas of trade and really, you know, working in the technical field and building and things like that. So I really appreciate your work and being a younger man, it makes me feel even better because it shows that we have let's be God. You know, so that makes my heart feel better. And I'm gonna try to get my younger men and I got 9 my mentors that I get in touch with this tomorrow. So that they're upstate, some of them are in Texas, some of them in Florida, but I think that this is something all over the states and all over the cities. I really appreciate your work and the vision that God has put into your heart. And not only that you have the vision, you're working towards it. Because some people have a vision, but they don't work towards the vision. So really, I'm very blessed today to meet you and to be here with you. Thank you, Dr. Mark.
Bishop, thank you so very much for those kind words. I certainly appreciate the work that you are doing and have done in this space. I'm a newcomer, so you've already paved the road, and I just thank you for all that you have done and continue to do. We are just trying to follow in those same big giant footsteps. So God bless you, sir. Thank you so much.
You follow in the footsteps of the past. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Bishop Rosario. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
say that I'm impressed. The word that address.
Bishop, can you come closer to your microphone? We can't quite hear you. Oh, it's still hard to hear you. Sorry.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yes, better.
In New York, what?
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
It appears that you're cutting in and out, so we're only getting bits and pieces of your comments.
Okay, what about now? I'm not sure.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, I went in and out. No, so I was saying that I'm glad that he's being successful in the program and that he is addressing the recidivism rate. Because many years ago, we were we're trying to get an organization going to address specifically that. And you have to deal with legislature and politics and all that to help in that. And it didn't reach the success it had because they kind of went another way. And it is very important for clergy to get involved in helping this. And the reason I'm saying that is because in New York right now, the one way that they found, quote unquote, to help the recidivism rate is people that were locked up with minor offenses as marijuana. They're their solution is that they're giving them a license to open up cannabis stores. Because, that's what they were taking it for. So, now they can't get jobs anywhere else because, us clergy do not get involved in giving them other trainings, like my husband said, unions and all that. So they say, well, now let them open up their own business. And the businesses, they went into jail for smoking pot or selling weed. So now they come back and they can sell it legally in the stores. So, that's why it's important for clergy to get involved, because if we don't, the government is just interested in making money. They're not interested in saving souls. It's making money. So I think that's something that even in New York, us clergy have to really, get in. And what happens here is that we start an organization or we start a group to start addressing this, and then everybody wants to be a chief, and then we don't get things done, because there's got to be one person that has the vision to have connections with politicians, legislators, to be able to get bills, to be able to make proposals, to be able to tell government and unions and unite them together to help that recidivism rate instead of that. So that's kind of my piece on that. And I want to thank you because, you're getting success over there, and it takes a lot of work to get that kind of success.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and one thing that they're doing here in Indiana, it was on the news last night, I believe it was. They're trying to get a bill passed called Bill 1 in reference to mental health, because a lot of recidivism is a mental health issue, and people are being rearrested because they're out there and there's no support system. So when you're talking about intervention and prevention, mental health plays a key role in that. So they're trying to get this bill passed that it will be sustainable, that when a person has a mental health issue, they'll get mental health treatment instead of incarceration. And they're calling it Faith in Indy. So there are a lot of clergy involved in that. And that's something that we all have to be mindful of. And wherever we can lend support, I think it's important for us to do so. Bishop Rosario talked about the family. The family unit is the foundation. So when you don't have that family unity and you don't have any support, then naturally things can go sideways really fast. So by you guys having that, the intervention, the prevention is the primary thing, because you want to intervene before they even cross over into a situation that you have to intervene. So Bishop Rosario said that we had the power and we had the authority to cast these demons out, because we're talking about demons that are assigned to regions.
Amen.
And face those demons that are assigned to the regions, that's how we get things rolling. And I appreciated the clergy coming forth and supporting this Bill 1 in Indiana, because for the longest time it was state and religion need to be separated, but state and religion have to work together in order to break a lot of these chains and to end a lot of these ills that we have that's going on in our society now. Is there anyone else? Daryl, Minister Daryl Franklin, I see your hand up. Want to unmute? Still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, thank you so much. God bless you all. Oh my God. The Rosarios and also Reverend Faulkner, God bless you. Thank you so much for the work which you all are doing. Reverend Faulkner, I am so impressed, and thank you for having the passion to reach out to our youth and to be able to have the heart to, I guess you can say, as we had discussed on previous occasions, you didn't reinvent the wheel. You went out to seek other people who are actually doing substantive work, and you initiated that collaboration, which actually puts you in God's position to be the orchestrator of being able to create a wholeness in society, and also offer a blueprint that will lead towards the path that will actually lead towards the holistic healing of our society. And so I am so inspired with the fact that you, a minister of God, and Rosarios and some of you others here, that the ministers of God, God's people, are taking this initiative, because that is something that has, I guess you can say, there's certain people who have misinterpreted separation of church and state. And see, that has been a crippling effect on our communities as well as our nation, because God made the state.
Come on, come on.
God
Yeah.
who should
Yeah.
be first and foremost. And so that's why the solution is going to come from you guys, from doing it. Man, I can say so much. I mean, God bless you. Y'all killing it, man. And if any, I would love to be able to do what you're doing here in Elizabeth, because I have this idea, you know, more working with Reverend Oliver, and I had the honor and pleasure of working, talking and speaking to Dr. Alexander last year. And we're working to initiate the Moral Black Leadership. So another question I have, I just had to put that out there because I'm so inspired with what you're all doing. But is it fair to say that the minimum wage, is that having a crippling effect on our youth? Because I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, if the minimum wage is so high within employers, they lack the flexibility to hire teenagers to do their work. So what would you say to that? Can that be adjusted? And once a certain person reaches 18, but then they can put it up? Or I'm just putting that out there as a question. And yeah, you know, your response or whatever comes to your mind. I just wanted to thank you and just say that question. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, sir. Dr. Franklin, is that a question for me or is that for Bishop Rosario?
Oh, that's for you, Reverend Faulkner, and if the Rosarios care to respond, but I was directing that to you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's a tough question to answer for me, coming from a place of lack. Here's what I mean by that. I think that so many in the community where I live lack basic needs, from a good quality education to home training, I call it. That's for the old school folks that understand what I mean when I say that. To opportunities for leisure. There's so many areas of lack. And when you talk about the minimum wage, we have 15, 16-year-olds who are the breadwinners of the house. And the wage, minimum wage increase, from my perspective, has been nothing but positive. It gives an incentive for young people to go to work. It helps them, as some of them are the breadwinners of their home, do a better job of taking care of the home. And let me just put it in perspective for you all. If I can pick up a gun at 43rd and Montgall and take it to 59th and the Paseo and collect $500 just for moving that gun from one location to the next. Oh yeah, we've got to be competitive with the minimum wage to compete against that. If you want the kid to just move weapons or move drugs from one location to the other for hundreds of dollars, you've got to be competitive in the wages that you're willing to offer them to incentivize them to go to work instead of just moving weight. And so I stand on the opposite end, Dr. Franklin, of this minimum wage is a good thing that it was increased for so many reasons. I do see your point that it certainly could be negative from some standpoint, but I see more good in the raising of that minimum wage than the negative or the bad.
Thank you so much, Reverend Faulkner. We greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much to Reverend and Bishop Rosario. Thank you so much, Minister Franklin. You're always a contributing factor. We thank you, John O'Connell, for speaking. And as we continue to come together and move forward, your subject matter, please get it to Reverend Oliver. Any questions you may have, I think you have Reverend Faulkner's information. And any question you might have for the next time, just write it down until we meet again. So we've come together collectively. We pray that Reverend Oliver meets his destination safely as he's transitioning and up in the air. And we thank you so much. We thank everyone. Nadia, EJ, we can't do it without you. So we thank all of you for coming together and spending time with us as we talk about making a difference in our communities and stopping the violence and crime in America. Thank you all so much, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alexander, and
Thank
for
you.
all that
Yes.
participated in
to
this
the
call
update.
today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everybody.
God bless.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great job. Dr.
Thank you.
Alexander, awesome.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank
Faulkner.
you, Dr. Alexander. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you,
You're
Bishop
welcome.
Rosario.
It take all of us to make this happen.
Thank you, Esteban Galvan.
Amen. Amen.
Yes.
Thank you.
To
Yes.
God be the glory.
Amen.
Reverend Alexander.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Take care. Have a blessed week.
Good to see you. Reverend Gavin, good to see
Okay,
you.
all right, Brother Franklin. God bless you, brother.
I'm healing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bless
Awesome.
you all.
Thank you,
Have
Reverend Faulkner. A lot of good work. Thank you, Reverend Faulkner.
Mm.
Bishop Rosario, looking good.
Yes.
Yay.
Continue blessings.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Okay, see you again next time.